A young fisherman married a beautiful woman with a secret. For 7 years, Mermaid was the perfect wife, loving, devoted, and gentle. But she avoided water at all costs. She never stepped into the river, never walked in the rain, and drank only from a special calabash she kept hidden. What happened next would unravel an ancient curse, reveal a forbidden love between land and sea, and awaken the wrath of the ocean itself. Sometimes, the most dangerous secrets are the ones hidden in plain sight. Adeyemi thought he had married the woman of his dreams. Instead, he had unknowingly stolen a bride from the depths of the sea. This is the story of how a fisherman's love defied fate, and how the ocean came to take back what was never meant to be his. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. The sun was setting over Ajuba, casting golden light over the treetops. Adeyemi, known to some as Tund, wiped sweat from his brow as he carried his fishing net over his shoulder, his bare feet pressing into the soft earth. The day had been long, and the fish had been stubborn. But the river had given enough, and he was satisfied. As he walked home, something unusual caught his eye, a trail of footprints leading deep into the forest. The villagers rarely went into the woods at this time. The elders warned that strange things happened in the dark, things that could not be explained. But Adeyemi was not afraid. Curious, he followed the trail. The air grew cooler as he moved deeper among the trees. The rustling of leaves and distant cries of birds filled his ears. And then, he saw her. She was sitting against a tree, her arms wrapped around herself. Her dark hair was tangled, and her clothes were torn. Her skin shimmered, as if dusted with tiny flecks of gold. When she lifted her head, her eyes locked onto his, deep, endless pools of green, like the heart of the ocean. Adeyemi's breath caught in his throat. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. The woman hesitated, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. "Do you need help?" She lowered her gaze and nodded slowly. Without another thought, Adeyemi knelt beside her, offering his hand. She flinched at first but then took it, her fingers cold against his warm skin. He helped her to her feet, noticing how light she was, as if she carried the weight of a different world. "Where are you from?" he asked. She shook her head. "What is your name?" This time, she spoke, her voice soft like a whispering wave. "Mermaid." Adeyemi smiled. "That is a beautiful name." She said nothing, only watching him with an expression he could not understand. There was something ancient in her eyes, something that did not belong to the world of men. "Come," he said. "I will take you to my village. My people will help you." As he led her back toward Ajuba, the wind carried a strange sound through the trees, a distant, sorrowful song, like the river mourning for something it had lost. The village of Ajuba was quiet that evening, with only the distant crackling of cooking fires and the murmur of voices drifting through the air. The smell of roasted fish and palm oil filled the streets as mothers called their children home. Adeyemi walked carefully beside Mermaid, guiding her through the narrow paths between mud brick huts. The villagers watched them from their doorways, their eyes filled with curiosity and suspicion. "Who is she?" a woman whispered. "She came from the forest," a man muttered. "No one comes from there." "She looks strange," another added. "Her eyes. Have you ever seen eyes like that?" Adeyemi ignored them. He led Mermaid to his mother's hut, the largest one at the edge of the village. It was round, with a thatched roof and clay walls decorated with white chalk patterns. His mother, Mama Abike, was sitting outside, pounding yam in a mortar. She looked up as they approached, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Adeyemi," she said, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "Who is this?" "She needs help," Adeyemi said simply. Mama Bike stood and studied Moreo closely. "Where is your family, child?" Moreo lowered her gaze, her fingers clutching the torn fabric of her dress. "She does not speak much," Adeyemi explained. "I found her in the forest." "The forest?" Mama Bike's frown deepened. "No good thing comes from the deep forest, my son. She is just a woman in need." Mama Bike sighed, then gestured toward the hut. "Come in. She must eat." Inside, the fire cast warm light across the small space. The walls were lined with clay pots, baskets of dried fish, and gourds filled with water. Adeyemi set down a bowl of food for Moreo, but she hesitated. "Eat," Mama Bike said gently. "You must be hungry." Slowly, Moreo picked up a piece of roasted plantain and took a small bite. "She eats like a bird," Mama Bike muttered. Adeyemi chuckled. "She will get stronger." Mama Bike turned to her son. "And what do you plan to do with her?" "She can stay with us," Adeyemi said. "At least until we know where she belongs." Mama Bike sighed again. "You have always had a kind heart, my son. But be careful." As the night grew deeper, Moreo remained quiet, watching the flickering flames of the fire. And when everyone else had fallen asleep, she stood and walked to the door. Beyond the huts, the river shone under the moonlight, its surface rippling like a living thing. She whispered something, words not meant for human ears. And somewhere far away, beneath the water's depths, something stirred. Days passed, and Moreo became a part of village life. Though still quiet, she helped where she could, pounding yam, weaving baskets, and preparing fish. The villagers began to accept her, though whispers still followed her. "She never fetches water from the river," they said. "She never bathes with the other women. She never even lets rain touch her skin." Adeyemi heard these whispers but brushed them aside. He had fallen in love with Moreo, her gentle smile, her soft laughter, the way she looked at him as if he were the only man in the world. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he sat beside her outside their hut. "Moreo," he said. She turned to him. "Will you be my wife?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached for his hand. "Yes," she whispered. Adeyemi smiled, his heart swelling with happiness. But as the villagers celebrated their union, an old woman, hunched with age, watched from the shadows. She muttered to herself, shaking her head. "She does not belong here," the old woman said. "The river does not forget." But no one listened. And so, the fisherman married the woman who feared water. The seasons passed, and Moreo and Adeyemi lived in happiness. She bore him a son, a bright-eyed boy named Tund, who was the joy of their household. Yet, despite her love for her family, Moreo remained the same. She never touched water. When the village women carried their pots to the river, Moreo stayed behind. When it rained, she ran inside, never allowing even a drop to touch her skin. Even when washing clothes, she used only the water from her special calabash, never dipping her hands into the stream like the other women. At first, Adeyemi ignored it. But as the years passed, he began to wonder. One evening, dark clouds gathered in the sky. The air smelled of coming rain, thick and heavy. The villagers hurried to bring their things inside, knowing the storm would be strong. Adeyemi and Tund sat outside, watching the sky darken. The boy giggled as he stretched his hands toward the first drops of rain. "Come, Moreo," Adeyemi called. "It is only water." But she did not move. Instead, she took a slow step backward, her breath quickening. Then, as the rain began to pour, she turned and ran inside. Adeyemi followed, frowning. "Moreo, why are you so afraid?" She sat in the corner of their hut, trembling. I cannot," she whispered. "Why?" She said nothing. That night, as the rain drummed against the roof, Adeyemi lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, he felt afraid. Late that night, when she thought everyone was asleep, Mermaid rose from her mat. Her bare feet made no sound as she stepped outside. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp, thick with the scent of wet earth. She walked through the sleeping village, past the darkened huts and empty paths, toward the river. The moon cast silver light upon the water, making it shimmer like a great mirror. She knelt at the edge, pressing her hands against her stomach, as if she were in pain. Then she began to sing. It was a low, haunting melody, one that did not belong to the world of men. The river stirred, ripples spreading across its surface. The water darkened, churning, as if something beneath was listening. Mermaid closed her eyes. "Forgive me," she whispered. The wind sighed through the trees. A whisper came from the water, soft and sorrowful. "Come home, daughter." Mermaid flinched, stepping back. "No," she breathed. "Not yet." But the river was patient. And it would wait. The next day, a traveler arrived in Ajuba. He was an old man, his back bent with age, his eyes clouded with wisdom. The villagers gathered around him, eager for news from beyond the river. The old man sat by the fire, telling stories of the world beyond the village. He spoke of great kingdoms, of warriors and kings. But then, his voice grew quiet. "Have you heard," he said, "of the mermaid princesses?" The villagers leaned in closer. "There is an ancient tale," the old man continued. "Long ago, men stole maidens from the river, maidens who were not meant to walk on land. These maidens were cursed to remain among humans, suffering with each passing year." Adeyemi listened, his heart pounding. The old man's gaze swept over the crowd. "But the river never forgets," he said. "And when the time comes, it will take back what belongs to it." Silence filled the air. And somewhere in the crowd, Mermaid lowered her head. That night, Adeyemi lay awake, staring at the thatched ceiling of their hut. The old traveler's words echoed in his mind. The river never forgets, and when the time comes, it will take back what belongs to it. He turned to Mermaid, who lay beside him. Her breathing was soft, but her brow was furrowed, as if troubled even in sleep. Adeyemi sat up, his heart restless. He could not ignore it anymore. Who was she? Rising quietly, he stepped outside. The village was silent, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth. A full moon hung over the river, its silver light stretching across the water like an unspoken promise. And then, he heard it. A voice. Soft, mournful, drifting from the direction of the river. Adeyemi's breath caught in his throat. He followed the sound, his bare feet moving as if guided by something unseen. As he drew closer to the water's edge, the voice became clearer. It was Mermaid. She knelt beside the river, her hands pressed against her stomach, her head bowed. And she was singing. It was no song of the village. It was something older, something deeper, a song of sorrow, of longing, of the ocean's call. Adeyemi took a step forward. A twig snapped beneath his foot. Mermaid spun around. Her eyes widened, shimmering with something he had never seen before, fear. "Adeyemi," she whispered. "Why are you here?" His heart pounded. "What are you doing?" She swallowed hard. "Nothing." "Mermaid, who are you?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, without another word, she ran. Adeyemi stood frozen, watching as she disappeared into the shadows. And for the first time in 7 years, he knew that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Adeyemi went to his mother's hut. Mama Abike sat on a low wooden stool, grinding dried herbs in a clay bowl. She glanced up as he entered. "You look troubled, my son." Adeyemi hesitated. "Mama, do you believe in the old stories?" Mama Abike's hands stilled. "Which stories?" "The ones about the river." about women who were stolen from the water. For a moment, she was silent. Then she sighed. "Sit." Adeyemi obeyed, his heart hammering. "I have lived many years, Adeyemi," she said, her voice slow and measured. "And I have seen things I do not speak of." She set the bowl aside and met his gaze. "There are spirits in the river, my son. Some are kind. Some are not. And some do not belong to our world at all." Adeyemi clenched his fists. "Mama, is Moreo one of them?" Mama Abike studied him. "You tell me, Adeyemi. Have you not seen the signs?" His breath came short. The way she avoided water. The way she sang to the river. The way she ran last night. "She is hiding something," Mama Abike said. "And if you are wise, you will find out what it is before it is too late." That night, Adeyemi did not sleep. He lay awake, pretending to rest, listening to Moreo's breathing beside him. Then, just before dawn, it happened. She woke with a strangled gasp. Adeyemi turned to her. "Moreo." She clutched her stomach, her body trembling. Sweat glistened on her skin. "Tell me what is wrong," he pleaded. She shook her head. I cannot." Her body convulsed, and for a brief second, her skin shimmered. Not the way human skin does. Not the way it should. It shimmered like scales. Adeyemi stumbled back. Moreo gasped and covered herself. But it was too late. He had seen. His mind reeled. The whispers, the stories, the old traveler's warning. His wife was not human. Moreo looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. "But I was afraid." Adeyemi's throat was dry. Afraid of what? She closed her eyes. Afraid of what the ocean would do. Before Adeyemi could ask more, a cry tore through the village. He jumped to his feet. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the huts. The villagers ran through the streets, shouting. "A child has fallen into the well." Adeyemi's heart stopped. Tunned. Without another thought, he ran. The well stood in the center of the village, a deep hole lined with stones. Villagers surrounded it, peering inside with wide, horrified eyes. Adeyemi pushed his way forward. His blood turned to ice. His son was inside. "Tunned!" Adeyemi shouted. The boy's tiny voice echoed from below. "Papa! Help me!" The well was deep, too deep for anyone to climb down safely. The villagers murmured in fear. "What do we do? We cannot reach him." Then, Moreo stepped forward. She clutched her abdomen, her face twisted in pain. Her breath came short. Adeyemi saw it in her eyes. The fear. The hesitation. The truth she had hidden for so long. Then she looked at Tund. And she made her choice. With a pained cry, she leapt into the well. For a moment, all was silent. Then, a great flash of light. The villagers gasped. And before their eyes, Moreo's legs melted away, fusing into a tail. A long, shimmering, golden tail. Adeyemi staggered back. His wife was a mermaid. With a flick of her tail, she wrapped Tund in her arms and vanished beneath the water. And she did not return. The village stood frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. Only the wind howled through the trees, rustling the palm fronds above them. The water in the well had gone still, as if swallowing its secret. Adeyemi stared into the darkness below, his breath coming in sharp gasps. His heart pounded in his ears. His wife. His Moreo. She had transformed before his very eyes. The whispers began. She was never one of us. A river spirit. A water woman. A mermaid. Adeyemi gripped the edge of the well so hard his knuckles turned white. Tund. His voice cracked. The villagers held their breath. Silence. A sickening dread filled his chest. Then, a splash. And a small hand rose from the water. Adeyemi lunged forward, grabbing onto his son's fingers, pulling him up with all his strength. The villagers rushed to help, lifting the boy onto solid ground. Tund coughed violently, water dripping from his clothes. Adeyemi held him tight, pressing his forehead against his son's. My boy, my boy. But as he looked down into the well, into the dark, still water, Mermaid was gone. Tund trembled in Adeyemi's arms, his small body shaking from the cold. Where is Mama? He whispered. Adeyemi had no answer. The villagers stared, some in fear, others in awe. Mama Abike was among them, her eyes unreadable. She is not coming back, a woman murmured. The river has taken her, another added. The old traveler, who had told the tale of stolen mermaid princesses, stepped forward. He studied Tund, then looked at Adeyemi with quiet sorrow. The sea is patient, he said. It waits. It watches. Adeyemi shook his head. She would not leave us. She did not leave, the traveler replied. She was reclaimed. The words settled like stones in Adeyemi's chest. Reclaimed. Was this fate? Had the river been waiting all these years, waiting for Mermaid to slip, to fall, to return? Tund clutched his father's arm. She said she would come back. Adeyemi stiffened. He looked down at his son. She spoke to you. Tund nodded, his small face pale. She told me not to be afraid. The villagers gasped. Some backed away. Mama Abike grabbed Adeyemi's wrist, pulling him aside. Listen to me, my son. That child, he carries her blood. And the ocean does not forget its own. Adeyemi's stomach twisted. He looked at Tund, his son, his flesh, his joy. But now, for the first time, he feared what lay within him. Days passed, but the village was not the same. The people no longer looked at Tund the way they once did. Some called him the boy who should have drowned. Others called him the son of a spirit. Adeyemi noticed the change, how mothers pulled their children away when Tund walked past, how whispers followed his every step. And then, the strange things began. It started with the water. Whenever Tund cried, the rivers rose. Whenever he laughed, the wells rippled. One afternoon, as he sat playing by the stream, the fish gathered around him, circling in patterns no human child should command. And then, the dreams began. Tund would wake in the middle of the night, gasping for air. Mama is calling me, he whispered. Adeyemi's blood ran cold. Adeyemi sat awake that night, watching over his son. Tund's small chest rose and fell in steady breaths, but his face was troubled. His tiny fingers clenched the woven mat beneath him, his brow damp with sweat. Then, he whispered. Mama. Adeyemi's breath caught. He leaned closer. Tund's lips moved again, but his voice was different, softer, like the wind over the waves. She is waiting for me. A shiver ran down Adeyemi's spine. Then, before he could react, Tund's eyes flew open. But they were not the eyes of his son. They were silver blue, the color of the deep ocean. Adeyemi staggered back. Tund sat up slowly, tilting his head as if listening to something only he could hear. His small hands twitched. Then, in a voice not his own, he murmured, "The sea does not forget." Adeyemi's heart pounded. Tund. The boy blinked, and just like that, his eyes were normal again. He yawned, rubbing his face. Papa. What is wrong? Adeyemi could barely speak. He pulled Tund into his arms, holding him tight. Something was happening. Something was coming. and Adeyemi feared that no force on earth could stop it. The village was uneasy. Since Moreo's disappearance, the rivers had grown restless. The fishermen whispered of strange things in the water, fish with silver eyes, voices echoing beneath the waves. And then, one night, the rain came. It was no ordinary storm. The wind howled through the village, bending trees like blades of grass. The riverbanks overflowed, spilling onto the land. The ocean roared, sending waves crashing against the shore. And in the heart of the storm, Tund stood at the doorway of their hut, staring at the water. Adeyemi grabbed him. "Get inside." But Tund did not move. His small body trembled, his hands clenching into fists. His voice was barely a whisper. "She is here." Adeyemi froze. Lightning split the sky. And from the ocean, a voice rose with the wind. "Adeyemi." The villagers screamed. Because they knew. They had heard that voice before. It was Moreo. She had returned. But not as the woman they once knew. She had returned as something else. Something that no man could escape. The ocean had come for its own. The storm raged through the village, tearing thatched roofs from huts and bending palm trees like brittle twigs. The wind screamed like a restless spirit, and the riverbank swelled with an anger unseen for generations. But none of it mattered. Not to Adeyemi. Not when he heard her voice. Adeyemi. The sound drifted through the storm, not a whisper, not a shout, but something deeper, something that reached into his very bones. He turned toward the ocean, his heart pounding. Tund clutched his arm. "Papa, she is calling me." Adeyemi tightened his grip on his son, his mind whirling. "Stay here," he commanded. The boy's silver blue eyes flickered in the lightning's glow, his small frame trembling. "But she needs me." Adeyemi lifted him into his arms and pushed his way through the screaming winds. The villagers huddled in their homes, their fearful eyes peering through cracks in the wooden doors. Some watched from the shadows, whispering prayers to the gods of water. Mama Abike met him at the village square, her face lined with worry. "The storm is not ordinary, my son. The river spirits are restless." Adeyemi nodded. "I know." He glanced down at Tund, who stared at the ocean with a longing that frightened him. "What do I do, Mama?" Adeyemi whispered. Mama Abike's voice was firm. "You must choose, Adeyemi. Will you fight the sea, or surrender to it?" A fresh gust of wind howled through the village, nearly knocking Adeyemi off his feet. He had no time. If Moreo had truly returned, then there was only one way to know for sure. He had to go to the shore. The ocean was not like before. The shoreline had disappeared beneath the raging tide. Waves crashed violently, licking at the trees, threatening to swallow the land whole. But in the midst of it all, she stood. Moreo. She was half submerged in the water, her long, dark hair plastered against her face. But it was her eyes that made Adeyemi's breath catch. They glowed, not with the warmth he once knew, but with a light as deep and unknowable as the ocean itself. "Moreo," his voice cracked. She tilted her head, watching him. "Give him to me," she said. Adeyemi's grip on Tund tightened. "No." Moreo's lips parted, and for a moment, he thought he saw pain in her gaze. But then the water swirled around her, and he knew, this was not the same woman he had married. Tund stirred in his arms. "Mama." Adeyemi backed away. "You cannot have him." Moreo's expression darkened. The waves rose higher. "The ocean does not forget, Adeyemi," she murmured. "Neither do I." Then, before he could react, she reached out her hand. A force ripped Tund from his arms. Adeyemi lunged forward. No. But it was too late. The waves swallowed them whole. And just like that, they were gone. Adeyemi screamed as the waves swallowed Moreo and Tund. His legs pushed through the rising waters, his hands grasping at nothing but the wind and the foam of the angry sea. Tund. Moreo. His voice was lost in the storm's roar. The villagers stood frozen behind him, their eyes filled with fear and sorrow. No one dared to step forward. No one dared to defy the ocean. But Adeyemi would not give up. He dove in. Salt burned his eyes, and the waves tossed him like a child's toy, but he fought against the current. His arms stretched forward, reaching, searching. He had to find them. Then, a flash of silver. Something moved beneath the water. Moreo. Her tail gleamed like polished moonstone, her form shifting through the dark depths. And there, wrapped in her arms, was Tund. But he was not struggling. His small hands clung to her, his body pressed against hers. He looked peaceful. Adeyemi's lungs screamed for air, but he forced himself deeper. He reached out. Their fingers nearly touched. Then, a force yanked him back. It was not the tide. It was the ocean itself. A crushing weight wrapped around him, pulling him away, tearing him from his wife and child. His vision blurred. His strength faded. And as the sea pulled him into darkness, a voice whispered in his ears. She was never yours to keep. Then, nothing. Adeyemi awoke on the shore, gasping for breath. His limbs felt like lead, his chest ached, and his throat burned from swallowing seawater. He tried to sit up, but strong hands held him down. Adeyemi, a voice said. He turned his head and saw Mama Abike kneeling beside him. Her face was lined with grief, her hands firm on his shoulders. "Where?" he croaked. The old woman's lips trembled. "They are gone." Adeyemi's heart stopped. The villagers stood behind her, whispering amongst themselves, their eyes filled with pity and fear. Gone. No. No, it wasn't possible. He struggled to rise. "I have to go back, I have to find them." Mama Abike's hands tightened. "You cannot fight the ocean, my son," she said. "No man can." Adeyemi's vision blurred. The weight of her words crushed him. The love of his life, his son, taken. The world around him dimmed. The voices of the villagers became distant echoes. All that remained was the roar of the sea. And the knowledge that he had lost everything. Days passed. Then weeks. The ocean remained restless. Though the storm had ended, the waters did not return to peace. The rivers were no longer clear, but dark, as if touched by the sorrow of the sea. And the villagers began to suffer. The fishermen cast their nets, but the fish were gone. The wells, once deep and plentiful, ran dry. The crops withered. The sky remained clouded, the air heavy with unshed rain. Mama Abike watched from her hut, her old hands twisting in her lap. She knew the truth. The ocean was angry. Adeyemi had taken what was never his. And now, the land would pay the price. The village of Arimo withered under the weight of an unseen curse. Fishermen dared not sail far, their nets returned empty, their boats rocked by unseen hands beneath the waves. Farmers watched helplessly as once fertile land refused to bear fruit. Even the sky held its breath, refusing to send rain, though thick clouds loomed above like silent witnesses to the village's suffering. Adeyemi wandered like a man without a soul. His once strong hands had no work to do. His heart, once full, was hollow. Every night, he walked to the shore. Every night, he stood where the sea had stolen his wife and child. And every night, he heard whispers beneath the waves. At first, he thought he imagined them. The distant call of the tide, the wind's gentle song. But then, the whispers grew clearer. Adeyemi. The wind did not carry the sound. It came from the water. One night, as the village lay in uneasy slumber, Adeyemi knelt on the shore, pressing his hands into the wet sand. "Moreo," he murmured. The waves lapped at his fingers. Then, a voice. "The sea remembers." Adeyemi's breath caught. It was her. Moreo. The tide shifted, swirling in slow, rhythmic patterns. The night was silent, save for the whispers of the waves. And then, she rose. From beneath the water, a figure emerged. At first, she seemed as he remembered, Moreo, his wife, the woman he had loved. Her dark hair clung to her skin, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. But then, Adeyemi saw the truth. Her lower half was no longer human. A long, silver tail glistened beneath the water, shifting like liquid metal. Her hands, once warm and soft, were now pale and cold, webbed at the edges. Yet, her eyes were the same. Full of longing. Full of pain. "Adeyemi," she said again, her voice weighed down by sorrow. Adeyemi fell to his knees, the wind rushing from his lungs. "Moreo." She reached out, but did not step onto the land. "I was never meant to stay," she whispered. Adeyemi swallowed the lump in his throat. "Where is Tund?" A shadow passed over her face. "He is safe," she said. "He is changing." The words chilled him. Changing? Into what? Adeyemi's mind spun, his heart pounding. "Bring him back. He is my son. And he is mine, too." The sea swirled around her, churning with an ancient force. Then she spoke the words that would haunt him forever. "You took me from my home, Adeyemi. And now, the ocean has taken something from you." Adeyemi shook his head. "No, please, Moreo." She began to sink. "Come back to me," he begged. Her silver eyes gleamed in the darkness. And just before she disappeared, she whispered, "If you truly want him back, you must come to the depths." Then, she was gone. Adeyemi stared at the restless water, his body trembling. The choice had been made for him. If he wanted to save his son, he would have to follow Moreo into the ocean. Adeyemi stood at the shore, his heart pounding like the restless waves before him. Moreo's words echoed in his mind. "If you truly want him back, you must come to the depths." He clenched his fists. The sea had taken everything from him, his wife, his son, his very sense of self. Now, it demanded something more. The villagers had warned him long ago. The ocean does not forgive. The ocean does not forget. Yet, what was left for him on land? A village that feared him. A home filled with silence. A life without his son. He took a step forward, feeling the cold water rush over his feet. Then another. And another. The waves wrapped around his legs like fingers, pulling him in. The deeper he went, the heavier the air felt, the world behind him growing smaller and smaller. Then, a voice. "Adeyemi." He turned sharply. Mama Bike stood on the shore, her old frame trembling. "Don't go, my son. You are a man, not a creature of the deep." His throat tightened. "Mama. I have no choice." Tears welled in her eyes. There is always a choice. But was there? The sea had already decided his fate the moment he fell in love with Moreo. The moment he took what was never his to keep. Adeyemi turned back to the water, inhaled deeply. And dove. The ocean swallowed him whole. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, darkness and motion. Beneath the waves, the world stretched out like an endless blue void. Schools of fish darted past, their scales flashing like scattered moonlight. Strange shapes lurked in the distance, things with eyes that glowed in the abyss, things that watched him with knowing patience. Adeyemi's chest burned. His body screamed for air. But before he could resurface, something cold wrapped around his wrist. He gasped, only to find that he could still breathe. His lungs did not fill with water. Instead, the ocean cradled him, allowing him to exist within it, as if he belonged here. And before him, Mermaid emerged from the depths. She no longer looked like the woman he had married. Her features had become sharper, her skin paler, her eyes glowing like the deep ocean itself. She reached for him. "Come." Adeyemi's body moved on its own, drawn to her like the tide to the moon. She led him deeper, past coral palaces and forgotten shipwrecks. Past creatures that had never known the touch of sunlight. Then, finally, to a city beneath the sea. Adeyemi's breath caught in his throat. It was beautiful. Golden towers rose from the ocean floor, swaying with the currents. Wide, glistening streets stretched in every direction, lined with plants that shimmered like liquid silver. And at the center of it all stood a throne carved from a single pearl, seated upon it. A figure. A king of the sea. And standing before him. Tund. Adeyemi's heart nearly burst. Tund. The boy turned, his silver blue eyes blinking in confusion. But something was wrong. Tund was not the same. His skin had taken on an unnatural glow, his small hands webbed, his legs shifting, as if the ocean itself was trying to claim him. He was changing. Becoming something no longer human. Adeyemi rushed forward, but Mermaid's hand stopped him. "You must listen," she whispered. "If you wish to save him, you must listen." The Sea King's gaze locked onto Adeyemi. Then he spoke. And his words would change everything. The Sea King sat upon his throne of pearl, his presence heavy as the deep ocean itself. His long hair flowed like seaweed, and his eyes, ancient, knowing, bore into Adeyemi's soul. Tund stood at his side, small and silent. But he was no longer fully human. His skin shimmered with an unnatural glow, and his fingers twitched as if testing the water's pull. Adeyemi's breath came fast and shallow. "Let my son go." The Sea King's voice rumbled through the water, a sound both like a whisper and a crashing wave. "You took from the ocean, Adeyemi." Adeyemi clenched his fists. "I loved Mermaid. I did not steal her." The king's gaze darkened. "You loved her, but love is not possession. She was never yours to keep." Mermaid's hand tightened on Adeyemi's arm. "Please, listen." Adeyemi's eyes burned. "I only want my son back." The king tilted his head. "And if I were to return him, what would you offer in exchange?" Adeyemi's stomach dropped. "Exchange." The Sea King gestured toward Tund. "He belongs to the water now. The transformation has begun. If I return him, something must take his place." A slow dread curled in Adeyemi's gut. "What do you mean?" The Sea King's eyes gleamed. "A life for a life." The words settled over Adeyemi like a heavy weight. If he wanted Tund back, he had to offer something in return. "Your son's fate is sealed," the king continued. "Unless..." Adeyemi already knew the answer. "Unless I take his place," he whispered. The Sea King's silence was confirmation enough. Mermaid shook her head, her eyes pleading. "No, Adeyemi. There must be another way." Tund, still silent, stared at his father, as if waiting for his choice. Adeyemi's heart ached. Could he do this? Could he leave behind his life, his world, to save his son? The ocean had taken so much already. Now, it asked for more. Adeyemi swallowed hard. Then, with a trembling breath, he spoke. "Take me." A silence fell over the underwater throne room. Mermaid's sharp intake of breath cut through it first. Then, the Sea King smiled. "A noble offer," he murmured, his voice like shifting tides. "But do you understand what this means?" Adeyemi nodded. If I stay, my son goes free. The Sea King's expression remained unreadable. Yes. But know this, Adeyemi, you will never walk on land again. You will never breathe the air of your village. You will become part of the ocean, forever. Adeyemi's chest tightened, but he did not waver. Tund was his son. No matter the cost, he would not let the ocean take him. Do it, he said. The Sea King rose from his throne. The water around him stirred, as if responding to his movement. He stretched out his hands. Then let the exchange begin. A deep hum filled the water. The sea darkened, a swirling current forming around Adeyemi. Moreo cried out. Stop. But it was too late. Adeyemi's body froze, caught in the ocean's grip. He felt it, the pull of the sea, stronger than anything he had ever known. His skin tingled. His legs burned. Then, they fused. Adeyemi gasped as a sharp pain shot through him. His feet disappeared, shifting, changing, until his legs became a single powerful tail. His skin hardened into shimmering scales, his arms lightened, webbing forming between his fingers. He was no longer human. The transformation was complete. He was one of them now. The Sea King turned to Tund. Go, child. A powerful current swept through the water, lifting Tund and carrying him upward. Adeyemi's heart ached as he watched his son rise toward the surface. Would Tund remember him? Would he ever understand what had been sacrificed? His last sight of his son was Tund's wide, silver-blue eyes, filled with confusion, sorrow, and something deeper. Then, he was gone. Adeyemi's fate was sealed. The village of Arimo awoke to an impossible miracle. At the break of dawn, a child washed ashore. Tund lay on the sand, untouched by the tide, as if the ocean had placed him there gently. Mama Abike was the first to reach him. She fell to her knees, pulling him into her arms. Tund, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. The villagers gathered around, staring in stunned silence. The boy, the child lost to the sea, had returned. But something was different. His eyes, once dark like his father's, now shimmered like the ocean itself. His small hands, though human, moved with an unnatural grace, as if the water still called to him. And in the distance, the sea remained restless. That night, as the village celebrated his return, Tund wandered to the shore. He stood at the water's edge, staring into the endless blue. And from the deep, a voice called to him. A voice he would never forget. Tund. The villagers swore that, on nights when the moon was full, a figure could be seen beneath the waves, watching, waiting. A fisherman who had traded his soul for his son. And though he was gone, his voice still rose from the deep, calling a name only the sea remembered. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silver light over the restless waves. Tund stood at the edge of the sea, his small toes sinking into the cool, wet sand. He had returned to the village of Arimo, but something inside him had changed. The villagers rejoiced at his miraculous return, embracing him with love and gratitude. Mama Abike cried when she held him, whispering prayers of thanks to the gods. The elders said it was a blessing that he had survived the ocean's wrath. But Tund knew the truth. He had not escaped the ocean. The ocean had let him go. And every night, when the village slept, he heard the whisper of the waves. Calling. Beckoning. He did not understand why, but when the wind carried the salt of the sea through the air, it felt like a memory just out of reach. Or perhaps, a promise not yet fulfilled. One night, when the sky was black and the world was silent, Tund slipped out of his hut and made his way to the shore. The waves glowed faintly under the moonlight, a silver path stretching into the horizon. And then, he heard it. A voice. Tund. His breath caught in his throat. It was deep, yet familiar. A voice he knew. He stepped forward, the sea foam licking at his ankles. Tund, the voice called again, rising from the depths. His heart pounded. Baba. Silence. Then, movement. A ripple formed on the water's surface. A shadow shifted beneath the waves. Tund took another step, his body trembling. His fingers itched to touch the water, to reach for the presence just beneath the surface. But before he could, a firm hand grabbed his shoulder. Tund. Mama Abike's voice was sharp with fear. Tund gasped and turned. The old woman's face was lined with worry, her eyes wide as she pulled him back onto the shore. "You must not go into the water," she whispered, her grip tight. "The sea has already taken too much from this family." Tund opened his mouth to protest, but she held up a hand. "I know what you hear," she murmured. "I know what calls to you. But listen to me, child, the ocean does not return what it claims." Tund looked back at the water. The ripples had stilled. The voice had faded. But in his heart, he knew. His father was out there. Waiting. Watching. And one day, the ocean would come for him again. Days passed, then weeks. Tund tried to ignore the pull of the water, but it grew stronger. His dreams were filled with images of a great underwater city, of a throne carved from pearl, of his father's voice calling his name. And then, the changes began. At first, they were small. Tund found that he could hold his breath for far longer than any of the other village children. When he swam in the river, he moved faster than he should have been able to. And then, one morning, as he washed his face in a basin of water, he saw them. His fingers. Thin, delicate webbing had begun to form between them. Tund gasped and pulled his hands back, his heart racing. The transformation had not stopped. The ocean had not finished with him. And deep down, he realized something terrifying. No matter how far he ran, the sea would always find him. Tund kept his secret for as long as he could. By day, he covered his hands with strips of cloth, pretending they were injuries from climbing trees. By night, he stared at them in the dim glow of the moon, watching the webbing between his fingers thicken. But the ocean was patient. And it did not let go. One evening, as the village prepared for a festival, Tund sat at the edge of the river, his feet dipping into the water. The coolness soothed him in a way he could not explain. He sighed and stared at his reflection. His eyes flashed silver. Tund jerked back with a cry, splashing water over his face. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." But when he looked again, the glow was gone. Still, the truth sat in his chest like a stone. The sea was changing him. And soon, it would come for him again. That night, as the villagers danced around the great bonfire, Tund sat with Mama Abike at the edge of the crowd. He barely heard the drums. His mind was trapped in a storm of thoughts. "I know something is troubling you," Mama Abike said softly. "I have seen it in your eyes." Tund hesitated. Could he tell her? Could he tell her that when he swam, he felt too light, too fast? That his dreams were no longer his own? That sometimes, when he looked at the river, he thought he saw his father's face beneath the surface? Instead, he shook his head. "It's nothing." Mama Abike sighed and ran a hand over her beaded necklace. "Long ago, the elders spoke of children marked by the ocean," she murmured. "Those who were touched by the sea could never truly escape its call." Tund's blood ran cold. "What happened to them?" he whispered. Mama Abike's gaze darkened. "Some stayed. But they did not belong to the land, and so they suffered." Tund swallowed hard. "And the others?" Mama Abike hesitated. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "They returned to the ocean." Tund felt the wind shift. In the distance, the sea roared like a beast waking from slumber. He shivered. Because in that moment, he understood something terrible. The choice was not his to make. The ocean had already decided. Days passed. Then weeks. Tund tried to ignore the changes, but they became harder to hide. His skin tingled when he was near water. His ears caught whispers in the wind, voices calling his name. And worst of all, his legs ached. At first, it was a dull pain. Then it became sharp, unbearable, as though his very bones were shifting. One evening, as he washed his feet in a clay basin, he saw it. The faintest trace of scales. Tund gasped and fell back. The basin tipped over, spilling water across the floor. He scrambled away, his chest heaving. He was changing. And soon, there would be no hiding it. The sea was calling him home. And this time, it would not ask. It began with the winds. One night, as the villagers slept, a powerful storm rolled in from the sea. The sky churned, clouds dark as ink. The air grew thick with salt, and the trees bent beneath the force of the gales. Lightning slashed across the heavens. The sea raged. Tund woke with a start. His entire body burned, a deep, painful pulse that spread from his legs to his fingertips. He clutched his stomach and groaned, his skin damp with sweat. Then, a voice. Not the sea's whisper. Not his father's. But something ancient. Powerful. Unforgiving. Come. Tund gasped. He clutched his head, squeezing his eyes shut, but the voice only grew louder. Come home, child of the ocean. He stumbled to his feet. The wind howled through the village, sending palm fronds flying through the air. He had to run. He had to get away. But his legs would not move. Then, he fell. The last thing he saw was the storm breaking over the sea, as if the ocean itself had come to claim him. Then, darkness. Tund awoke to silence. No wind. No rain. No crackling thunder. Only darkness. And then, water. It cradled him, rocking him gently, as if the ocean itself were a mother soothing a restless child. But Tund knew better. This was no comfort. This was the sea's embrace. He gasped, his lungs burning, but instead of drowning, he found that he could breathe. The water rushed in, filling his chest, not with pain, but with power. Slowly, his eyes adjusted to the murky blue around him. Shapes shifted in the shadows. Schools of silver fish darted past. Strange, glowing creatures pulsed in the deep. And then, he saw them. Figures. They drifted through the water, their eyes glowing like pearls, their tails shimmering like moonlight. Merfolk. And at their center, sitting upon a throne of coral and gold, was his father. Adeyemi. But his face was not the one Tund remembered. His eyes were hard as stone. His expression unreadable. His skin bore the markings of the deep, glowing faintly in the dark. He was no longer the man who had once carried Tund on his shoulders, laughing under the sun. He was something else now. Something of the sea. Tund, he spoke at last, his voice like a current, low and powerful. You have returned. Tund's heart pounded. Baba, what is happening to me? Adeyemi's expression did not change. You were never meant to stay on land. The words hit Tund like a wave. Never meant to stay. He shook his head. No, no, I belong to the village. I belong to Mama Abike. To my friends. You belong to the ocean. Tund clenched his fists. That's not true. A murmur passed through the gathered merfolk. Some watched him with pity. Others with cold detachment. Adeyemi sighed. You do not understand yet, he said, rising from his throne. His long, powerful tail flicked through the water, sending ripples through the current. But you will. Then, a command. Bring him to the deep. Before Tund could protest, hands grabbed him. Strong, webbed fingers closed around his arms. And the sea pulled him deeper. Tund fought, but it was useless. The merfolk were stronger. Faster. They dragged him through the endless blue, past towering coral reefs and valleys of sand, through forests of kelp swaying like dancers in the deep. Then, at last, he saw it. The city of the lost. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Golden towers rose from the ocean floor, their surfaces shimmering with light from strange, glowing orbs. Vast arches of coral stretched high above, forming bridges that pulsed with life. Fish swam between buildings carved from seashells, and creatures he could not name lurked in the shadows. Tund's breath caught in his throat. It was beautiful. And terrifying. They led him to a great stone temple at the heart of the city. The doors opened with a low groan, revealing a vast chamber lined with statues. No, not statues. People. Or at least, they had been. Their faces were frozen in expressions of shock and pain, their bodies hardened into stone. Tund shuddered. What is this place? A voice answered from the darkness. The hall of those who fought fate. Tund spun around. A woman emerged from the shadows, her long, braided hair floating in the water. Her eyes glowed a deep, haunting blue. She was beautiful. And terrible. Who are you? Tund whispered. She smiled. I am the keeper of the deep. And before Tund could move, she reached out and touched his forehead. Pain. Burning, twisting pain shot through him like fire. And in that moment, Tund saw everything. He saw his mother, Mermaid, weeping beneath the waves. He saw his father, Adeyemi, bowing before the throne of an unseen king. He saw himself, changing. Scales. Webbing. Gills. He saw the truth. He had never belonged to the land. And now, the sea had finally come to claim him. Tund screamed. The pain was unlike anything he had ever known, as if fire and ice had both taken root inside his bones, twisting and reshaping him. His skin burned and rippled, and his veins pulsed with a strange, glowing light. He clutched his chest, gasping, his body convulsing as the transformation tried to take hold. But somewhere, deep inside, he fought back. No. He would not let the ocean take him so easily. He had a life. A home. A family. Stop fighting it, the keeper of the deep whispered, her voice echoing through his mind. You were never meant for the land. Tund gritted his teeth. His fingers trembled, his legs ached, but he clenched his fists and held on. I don't belong here. The keeper's eyes narrowed. She raised a hand, and suddenly, the ocean tightened around him, like invisible hands squeezing his lungs. You are foolish, she said. You think you have a choice. The sea has already decided. It always reclaims its own. Tund's vision blurred. His heartbeat slowed. Was this it? Was he going to become one of them? Then, a sound. Faint. Distant. A voice, calling his name. At first, he thought it was his father. But no. It was softer. Warmer. Familiar. Mama a bike. Tund's eyes widened. His mind, his very soul, reached for the voice. The pain shattered. The glow around his body faded. The fire inside him dimmed. The keeper of the deep's expression darkened. You are strong, she murmured, studying him with curiosity. Stronger than most. Tund collapsed, gasping for breath. His body was still his. For now. But the battle was not over. Not yet. Tund lay on the cold stone floor, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His whole body ached, but he had won, at least for now. The keeper of the deep watched him, her glowing blue eyes unreadable. You resist, she mused. But for how long? Tund didn't answer. He was too exhausted to speak. Then, from behind him, another voice spoke. He should not be here. Tund turned his head, and his breath caught in his throat. It was Adeyemi. His father floated near the entrance, his face unreadable. But there was something different about him, something distant, almost hollow. You must let him go, Adeyemi said to the keeper. The mermaid woman tilted her head, amused. Let him go, she repeated. You know that is not how this works. Adeyemi's jaw clenched. He swam forward and knelt beside his son. Tund, he murmured, his voice low. Listen to me. You cannot stay here. Tund's heart pounded. Then take me back, he gasped. A shadow passed over Adeyemi's face. I can't. The words hit Tund like a slap. His father could not take him back. Because he no longer belonged to the land. Tund's chest tightened. No, he whispered. That's not true. I can still go home. Adeyemi closed his eyes. You were marked the moment you were born, my son. The ocean has always been watching you. Tund shook his head. No. No, no, no. His whole life, everything he had ever known, was it all a lie? The keeper of the deep smirked. You see now, she murmured. You are not a child of the land. Tund looked down at his hands. They still looked human. His legs had not yet changed. But the truth was clear. The sea had claimed him. And soon, it would not let him go. Tund refused to give in. His father may have surrendered to the ocean's call, but he would not. He had to escape. But how? The city of the lost was vast, filled with merfolk who would never let him leave. The keeper of the deep watched his every move, her power stretching through the water like an unseen net. There was only one way. He had to reach the surface. Tund turned to his father, his voice low. Baba, is there a way out? Adeyemi hesitated. Then, he nodded. There is a passage, he whispered. A tunnel that leads to the surface. Tund's heart leaped. Where? But before his father could answer, a loud tremor shook the temple. The keeper of the deep rose from her throne, her expression darkening. You are a fool, Adeyemi, she hissed. Did you really think I would not hear you? Tund barely had time to react before the ocean itself seemed to come alive. The water surged. The walls rippled and twisted as if they were breathing. The keeper raised a hand, and the current slammed into them. Tund tumbled backward, gasping as the force pushed him deeper into the chamber. His father fought against the tide, struggling to reach him. Tund, go. Now. Tund kicked hard, swimming upward, but the water thickened around him, pulling him down. No, he gasped. He had to get out. The keeper's voice rang through the water. You will never leave this place. But Tund had one last trick. The voice of the ocean. He had heard it before, whispering in his dreams. And now, he called to it. The water shivered. The walls shook. The sea listened. Tund took a deep breath and screamed, not with words, but with power. The ocean trembled. And then, the passage opened. A tunnel of swirling water formed above him, leading to the surface. Tund didn't wait. He swam. The keeper of the deep screamed in rage. The merfolk chased after him. But Tund was fast. Faster than any of them. He broke through the tunnel. And burst into the open air. The first breath of air hit him like fire. The sky was dark, the sea raging beneath him, but he was free. For now. But as he drifted on the surface, gasping, he knew one terrible truth. The ocean would not forgive him. It had let him escape. But it would come for him again. And next time, there would be no running. Tund washed ashore at dawn. His body was weak, his limbs barely obeying him. Each breath burned, as if the very air was rejecting him. But he was alive. The waves lapped gently at his feet, as if mocking him, a final warning from the sea. He rolled onto his back, staring at the sky. The clouds were heavy, their gray bellies full of rain, but the storm had not yet come. It was waiting. For him. Groaning, Tund pushed himself up. The shoreline stretched before him, leading to the familiar red earth of his home. The village. Would they even recognize him? Would he even recognize himself? His heart pounded as he staggered forward. Each step felt unnatural, as if his legs no longer belonged to him. His skin tingled, remnants of the ocean's power still lingering. As he neared the first cluster of huts, the air grew still. Then, a scream. "Mama! Mama, come quickly!" Tund barely had time to react before villagers rushed from their homes. Women clutched their children, dragging them away. Men grabbed spears. They stared at him with fear. Tund swallowed. "It's me," he rasped. "It's Tund." But no one moved. Then, from the crowd, Mama Bike stepped forward. Her old eyes were filled with shock. "Tund," she whispered. Tears welled in his eyes. "Yes, Mama, it's me." For a moment, she simply stared. Then, she ran to him, pulling him into her arms. "You came back," she sobbed. "My son, you came back." Tund clung to her, the warmth of her embrace filling the cold space in his heart. For the first time in days, he felt safe. But the villagers were still watching. Whispers spread like wildfire. He was taken by the sea. He should not have returned. He is cursed. Tund's stomach twisted. No. This was his home. These were his people. He had escaped the ocean. Did that mean nothing? Then, a voice rang out. "He smells of salt water," an elder said. His face was hard, his eyes dark with suspicion. "The sea never lets go without a price." The villagers murmured in agreement. Tund's chest tightened. Had he truly escaped? Or had he only brought the curse back with him? The village did not welcome Tund back. Not truly. The men did not speak to him. The women whispered behind his back. The children avoided his gaze. Even Mama Bike, though loving, watched him with worry. And then, the rain came. It started as a drizzle, soft, hesitant, like fingers brushing against the rooftops. But then the sky darkened. The wind howled. And the storm broke. The villagers cried out, running for shelter as the heavens opened. Water flooded the village in thick, heavy sheets. The river swelled, creeping toward their homes. Thunder roared. And in the center of it all, Tund stood. Untouched. The rain did not fall on him. The wind did not move him. The sea had marked him. The villagers saw. And they were afraid. Mama Bike grabbed his hand, her eyes wide with terror. "Tund," she whispered. "What are you?" Tund's heart pounded. He looked down at his hands, expecting to see scales. But he was still himself. Wasn't he? Before he could answer, a loud crack split the air. Lightning struck the village well, shattering the stones. Water gushed from within, spilling like a river onto the ground. The earth trembled. The villagers screamed. And Tund knew. The sea had followed him home. The elders called an emergency meeting. They gathered beneath the great baobab tree, their faces grim. "The boy is cursed," one of them hissed. "The sea has claimed him." Mama Bike held Tund's hand tightly. "He is just a child." He is no longer one of us. Tun's heart ached. No, he said, stepping forward. I fought. I escaped. An elder pointed a bony finger at him. Then why does the ocean still call for you? Tund had no answer. The storm raged outside. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The well overflowed with dark, churning water. Then, through the howling wind, a voice spoke. Return to us. Tund froze. It was not a voice of the living. It was the voice of the deep. The voice of the ocean itself. The elders gasped. Mama Abike gripped his arm. Don't listen, my son. But the water rose higher. The storm grew stronger. Tund clenched his fists. He had run. He had fought. But the sea was not finished with him. It wanted him back. And this time, it would not ask twice. Tund had a choice. He could run. Or he could fight. But could anyone truly fight the ocean? The waves crashed. The wind screamed. The village trembled. And Tund stepped forward. I will not go with you, he said to the storm. Lightning flashed. The sea raged. The villagers fell to their knees, praying, wailing, begging the spirits to spare them. But Tund stood tall. If you want me, he whispered, then come and take me. The wind stopped. The rain froze midair. And the ocean answered. A shadow rose from the well, its form shifting and twisting like smoke beneath the waves. Eyes glowed like the deep abyss. A mouth opened, revealing teeth of jagged coral. It was not a man. Not a god. It was something older. Something forgotten. The true ruler of the ocean. And it had come for him. A hush fell over the village. The storm held its breath. The wind stilled. The rain hovered in the air like droplets of glass, frozen in time. Tund's heart pounded. He stood before the shadow that had risen from the well, the spirit of the ocean itself. The being had no clear form, only shifting waves, dark mist, and glowing abyssal eyes. When it spoke, its voice was a low, echoing rumble, as if 1,000 waves had whispered at once. You have defied the sea. Tund's breath hitched. He could feel the ocean's presence in his bones, in his blood, a pull, a call, a demand. The villagers cowered behind him, whispering prayers, clutching charms. Even the elders, the wisest of them all, had fallen silent. Mama Abike reached for his hand. Her fingers were cold. Or was it his own skin that was losing warmth? I will not return, Tund said, forcing his voice to stay steady. I fought for my life. I belong here. The shadow loomed closer. The air around him grew damp, thick with salt. You were never meant to escape. The ground beneath him trembled. The well, the very heart of the village, cracked open further, spilling forth more water, not fresh, but dark, endless, and deep. The ocean was trying to take back what belonged to it. Tund gritted his teeth. I am no longer yours. The spirit hissed, waves crashing in its voice. You were never yours to begin with. A wave of cold washed over him, and suddenly, memories. Not his own. Flashes of silver scales. The depths of the ocean. A kingdom of coral and pearls. A child, taken from the waves. A curse, binding him to the land. Tund staggered back. What are you saying? He gasped. The ocean's voice rippled through him. Your mother never told you, did she? Mama Abike gasped beside him. Tund turned, eyes wide. Mama. She was shaking. Tears welled in her eyes. Tund. Her voice broke. I prayed this day would never come. His hands trembled. What does it mean? The spirit's voice rumbled like distant thunder. You are one of us. The word struck him like a crashing wave. One of us. Tun's body felt suddenly foreign. His skin prickled. His chest tightened. He looked down at his hands. For the briefest moment, they shimmered. Like scales. No, he whispered. But deep inside, he knew it was true. Mama Abike fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Tund, please listen to me. He stepped back, shaking his head. You knew. His voice cracked. All these years, you knew. Tears streamed down her face. I only wanted to protect you. Tun's stomach twisted. His whole life, a lie. He turned back to the spirit. His true past burned in his veins like fire and salt. His mother was not his mother. His home was not his home. And the ocean had never forgotten him. His voice trembled as he spoke. What do you want from me? The ocean rumbled. Return. Tun's heart pounded. And if I refuse? The ground cracked beneath his feet. The wind roared. The ocean's voice was colder than ice. Then your village will suffer. Thunder cracked. The villagers screamed. Water rushed through the streets, swallowing homes, crops, lives. The sea was not asking. It was demanding. Tund clenched his fists. He had fought to escape. He had fought to live. But now, he had only one choice. To save his people. He had to surrender. Tund stood at the edge of the well. The ocean roared within it, waiting. His people watched, their faces pale with fear. His mother sobbed behind him, calling his name. The elders had no words. No prayers. Only silence. The sea had won. Slowly, Tund stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the water, a change began. His breath caught. His skin glowed. His legs burned. His lungs expanded. The ocean reached for him, pulling him back into its embrace. Mama Abike screamed. But it was too late. Tund fell. And the sea swallowed him whole. Darkness surrounded him. The water was cold, endless, deep. But he could breathe. He could move. Tund looked down. His legs were gone. In their place, a tail of silver and blue. He had become what he was always meant to be. A child of the ocean. Above him, the surface of the well grew farther and farther away. The village faded. And the sea called him home. But deep inside, Tund was not ready to surrender. Not yet. Not ever. Tund drifted deeper into the ocean's embrace, his body weightless in the vast, dark waters. His new tail shimmered like silver moonlight, reflecting the bioluminescent glow of strange sea creatures that watched him with curious eyes. He should have been afraid. He should have felt lost. But instead, something stirred within him. Memories that were not his own flickered in his mind, images of a kingdom hidden beneath the waves, of towering coral palaces, of merfolk clad in shimmering pearls, of a throne carved from the bones of ancient sea creatures. Was this his true home? A soft, melodic voice whispered through the water. He has returned. Tund turned sharply, his heart racing. Shadows moved in the distance, their forms elegant and fluid, their eyes glowing like the deepest trenches of the sea. Merfolk. They swam toward him in graceful spirals, their tails cutting through the water like blades. Some had markings on their arms, ancient patterns glowing faintly in the dim light. Others carried spears made from shark teeth and obsidian. Tund tensed, unsure whether to run or fight. Then, a figure emerged from the crowd. She was unlike the others. Her skin was the color of midnight, her long, flowing hair woven with strands of golden seaweed. Her eyes, deep and endless like the ocean itself, locked onto his. She knew him. Tund, she said, her voice both familiar and distant. His breath hitched. Who are you? She tilted her head, sadness flickering in her expression. I am your sister. The world seemed to shift. Tund's heart pounded. His sister. His mind swirled with confusion, with memories that weren't his own, with the undeniable feeling that, somewhere, deep in his bones, he knew she was telling the truth. But before he could speak, before he could even process what this meant, a deep, commanding voice rumbled through the water. Bring him to the throne. The merfolk surrounded Tund, their gazes unreadable. They guided him through an underwater city carved into the coral, past glowing gardens and towering structures where sea creatures swam freely through windows of woven kelp. At the heart of it all stood a palace unlike anything he had ever seen. It was enormous, carved from the bones of leviathans, with spires of pearl and gold stretching toward the ocean's surface. Strange, glowing orbs floated through the hallways, casting an eerie, dreamlike glow over everything. Tund barely had time to take it all in before he was led into the throne room. And there, seated on a throne of dark coral, was the king of the ocean. He was massive, his presence overwhelming. His tail was a deep shade of blue, speckled with golden markings that pulsed with an ancient power. His eyes, cold, endless, merciless, locked onto Tund with a gaze that made his blood run cold. You have returned, the king said, his voice as deep as the ocean floor. Tund clenched his fists. I was never meant to be here. The king's expression did not change. Yet here you are. Silence filled the chamber, heavy and suffocating. Tund forced himself to stand tall. Why did you take me from the land? He demanded. Why now? The king studied him for a long moment before answering. Because, he said, you are the heir to the throne. Tund felt the weight of those words crash over him like a tidal wave. The heir? He staggered back, shaking his head. No, that's impossible. I was raised on land. I had a mother, a village. The king's gaze darkened. That woman was never your mother. Tund's chest tightened. She raised me. She loved me. She stole you, the king said, his voice like rolling thunder. She took you from your true home and hid you among the humans. But the ocean does not forget its own. Tund clenched his jaw. And what if I don't want this? The merfolk around him shifted uncomfortably. His sister, if she truly was his sister, watched him with an unreadable expression. The king leaned forward, his eyes glowing with power. You have no choice. The room darkened, the water around them growing heavy with unseen force. The ocean itself seemed to whisper in his ears, calling him, binding him. Tund's pulse pounded. Was this truly his fate? Was there no way to fight it? Then, from the shadows, a voice whispered. There is another way. Tund turned sharply. A hooded figure stood near the entrance of the throne room, their form partially hidden by the darkness. The guards tensed, gripping their weapons. The king's expression hardened. You dare interrupt? The hooded figure ignored him, stepping forward, their voice calm but urgent. Tund, they said, if you wish to be free, you must escape. Now. The merfolk around them gasped. The king rose from his throne, his power thrumming through the water. Seize them. Everything happened at once. The guards lunged. The hooded figure grabbed Tund's wrist. A powerful current surged through the throne room, knocking back the merfolk. Before Tund could even think, the figure pulled him into the swirling water, and they vanished into the depths. The ocean roared around them as they fled. Tund's mind raced. His body moved instinctively, his new tail cutting through the water with shocking speed. The hooded figure swam ahead, leading him through twisting tunnels and deep chasms where the light of the kingdom no longer reached. Who are you? Tund shouted over the rushing currents. The figure hesitated. Then, slowly, they pulled back their hood. Tun's breath caught. It was an old man, his face weathered by time, his eyes sharp and filled with knowledge. "You don't remember me," the man said. "But I remember you, young prince." Tun tensed. "Prince?" The man nodded. "You are the rightful heir, but your return was not meant to be forced upon you. The king fears what you may become." Tun's heart pounded. "And what is that?" The man smiled grimly. "The one who will bring an end to his rule." A chill ran down Tun's spine. The merfolk were still chasing them. The ocean was still calling him back. But for the first time since he had been dragged beneath the waves, he had a choice. And he would not let it be taken from him again. Tun's heart pounded as he followed the old man through the twisting tunnels of the ocean's depths. The water around them was colder here, darker, filled with the quiet hum of ancient power. He was still struggling to grasp what had just happened. A prince? The heir to the ocean's throne? Destined to bring down a king? It was too much. Too fast. The old man swam ahead, leading him into a cave carved from black stone. Inside, glowing symbols covered the walls, their eerie light flickering like fire underwater. Tun turned to him, his mind a storm of questions. "Who are you?" The old man exhaled, bubbles rising from his lips. "My name is Baba Darren. I was once the royal scholar of the Ocean Kingdom, the keeper of its history. I served your father before the throne was stolen from him." Tun's body stiffened. "My father?" Baba Darren nodded gravely. "Yes. The true king. The one your uncle betrayed." The words hit Tun like a crashing wave. He had an uncle. The man who sat on the throne now, the one who had dragged him back beneath the sea, was the one who had stolen the crown. Tun clenched his fists, anger surging through him. Why? Why did he take it? Baba Darren swam closer, his ancient eyes filled with sorrow. Because of a prophecy. Tun's breath hitched. What prophecy? The old man gestured to the glowing symbols on the cave walls. Long ago, the ocean spirits whispered of a child, a son of the sea who would rise in a time of darkness, bringing balance back to the waters. He would overthrow a tyrant and restore what had been lost. Tun swallowed hard. And you think, that's me? Baba Darren gave a small, knowing smile. Not think, young prince. No. The water around them seemed to hum with unseen energy, as if the ocean itself agreed. Tun shook his head, overwhelmed. But I was raised on land. I don't know anything about ruling a kingdom. I don't even know how to fight in the water. You will learn, Baba Darren said firmly. And you will not be alone. The cave suddenly trembled, the water shifting as if something, or someone, was approaching. Baba Darren's expression darkened. They found us. Tun barely had time to react before shadows surrounded the cave entrance. The king's warriors. They were larger than the merfolk he had seen before, their bodies armored in the shells of deep-sea creatures, their eyes glowing with eerie blue light. Each of them held long, jagged weapons that crackled with oceanic energy. Their leader, a tall warrior with battle scars along his arms, pointed at Tun with a trident. The lost prince belongs to the king. Surrender him, or be destroyed. Baba Darren's gaze was steady. He is the rightful heir. You fight for a false king. The warrior's expression darkened. We fight for the ocean's order. The boy is a threat. Tun felt anger coil inside him. A threat to who? The one who stole the throne. The warrior bared his sharp teeth. You do not understand what you are, prince. His grip tightened on his weapon. And you will not live long enough to. The water grew heavy. The fight was coming. Baba Darren turned to Tun, his voice calm but urgent. You must use your instincts. You are more powerful than you know. Tun's pulse pounded. He had never fought underwater before. He had never even known he belonged here. But something deep inside him, something buried in his blood, stirred. The warriors lunged. And Tund moved. His body twisted through the water with a speed that surprised even him. He dodged the first strike, his new tail propelling him forward as the enemy's weapon slashed through empty space. Baba Darren summoned a surge of energy, sending a powerful shockwave through the cave. The walls trembled, and two warriors were thrown backward, crashing into jagged coral. Tund grabbed a fallen spear, his grip instinctive, natural, as if he had wielded one in another life. Another warrior came at him, fast. Too fast. But something in Tund clicked. He twisted, striking the warrior's side with the blunt end of the spear. The force of the impact sent the warrior spiraling, his weapon slipping from his grasp. Tund barely had time to register the shock on the warrior's face before another one lunged at him. He moved without thinking. Spinning. Dodging. Striking. The ocean was not his enemy. It was part of him. And for the first time, he felt unstoppable. The last warrior fell, defeated. Tund hovered in the water, his breath ragged, his body pulsing with energy he had never known before. Baba Darren watched him with approval. "You are awakening, young prince. Your power is beginning to return." Tund swallowed hard. His muscles ached, but it wasn't pain, it was power. He looked down at his hands, then at his tail, which glowed faintly with an ancient energy. "Who am I becoming?" Baba Darren placed a hand on his shoulder. "You must decide what comes next. Do you flee and find safety, or do you fight for your throne?" Tund looked out into the dark waters beyond the cave. The ocean was vast, endless. Somewhere out there was a kingdom that was rightfully his. Somewhere out there was his uncle, the tyrant king. He clenched his fists. He had spent his life running from his fate. But now, it was time to embrace it. Tund turned to Baba Darren, his eyes blazing with determination. "I will fight." Baba Darren gave Tund a long, appraising look. The flickering light of the cave walls danced across the old scholar's face as if the ocean itself had been waiting for this moment. "You have chosen the path of kings," Baba Darren said solemnly. "But power alone is not enough. You must be prepared." Tund nodded. His heart was steady now, no longer lost in fear. "How do I take back my throne?" The old scholar gestured toward the dark waters beyond the cave. "You cannot fight alone. You must gather allies, those who still remember your father's rule, those who despise your uncle's reign." Tund frowned. "Are there still people who believe in my father?" Baba Darren's eyes darkened. "More than you think. The tyrant king rules through fear, but fear is not loyalty. There are whispers in the deep, merfolk waiting for a sign, waiting for a leader strong enough to stand against him." Tund clenched his fists. "Where do I find them?" Baba Darren turned toward the cave entrance. The water around them pulsed with unseen power. "We must go to the city of the forgotten." Tund shivered at the name. Even though he had grown up on land, something deep inside him knew that name carried weight. "What is it?" he asked. Baba Darren's voice dropped to a whisper. "A place where the banished and the broken gather. Exiles. Outlaws. Warriors who lost everything to the king. If there is anyone who will fight with you, it is them." Tund exhaled. He was ready. Or at least, he had to be. "Then let's go." Without another word, the two of them disappeared into the depths, leaving behind the cave, and the warriors they had defeated. The journey was long. Tund and Baba Darren swam through vast trenches where no light reached, past ruins swallowed by the ocean, past creatures older than time itself. Tund had never felt more alive. The further they traveled, the more he felt his body changing. His movements were smoother. stronger. The water no longer fought against him, it obeyed him. At times, he swore the currents shifted just to guide him. And then, they saw it. The city of the forgotten. It was not a city like the royal palace, carved from coral and pearl. This place was raw. Wild. Giant shipwrecks, broken and covered in seaweed, had been transformed into homes. Towering structures made from the bones of sea monsters loomed above them. Schools of glowing fish darted between the shadows. Everywhere, eyes watched them from the darkness. Merfolk of all shapes and sizes swam through the streets, many of them with scars, their bodies marked by battles and exile. Some had shattered tails, others had missing fins, but their eyes burned with defiance. Tund felt a shiver run down his spine. "Are you sure they will help us?" he whispered. Baba Darren gave him a small, knowing smile. "They hate the king more than anyone. That makes them dangerous, but it also makes them our greatest allies." As they swam deeper into the city, Tund felt the weight of every gaze on him. The lost prince. The heir they thought was dead. And then, from the shadows, a voice rang out, low, rough, filled with suspicion. "You should not have come here, boy." Tund turned sharply. A massive warrior swam toward them, his body covered in scars, his tail a deep, stormy gray. His eyes, sharp like a predator's, studied Tund with something between curiosity and anger. "Who are you?" Tund asked. The warrior smirked. "My name is Oba. And if you've come to start a war, you better be ready to finish it." Oba led Tund and Baba Darren deeper into the city. They passed dark alleys filled with outcasts, thieves, and warriors nursing old wounds. In the center of the city, in the ruins of what must have once been a grand fortress, a circle of warriors waited. They were the strongest of the forgotten ones. Some carried weapons forged from shark teeth and volcanic rock. Others had bodies marked with ancient tattoos, symbols of power that pulsed with deep-sea energy. Tund could feel their power. But he could also feel their distrust. "You are the lost prince," Oba said, folding his arms. "The one the tyrant king fears." Tund lifted his chin. "Yes." A low murmur passed through the warriors. Some nodded in understanding. Others narrowed their eyes. "And why," Oba continued, "should we fight for you?" Tund took a deep breath. This was the moment that mattered. "Because we all want the same thing," he said. "To end the king's rule. To bring justice to the ocean." A warrior with glowing scars stepped forward. "You were raised on land. How do we know you are strong enough to lead us?" Tund felt his blood heat. He could not back down now. "If you doubt me," he said, stepping forward, "then fight me." The warriors stilled. Then, slowly, Oba grinned. "A challenge." Tund nodded. "Let me prove I belong here." Oba turned to the others, then back to Tund. "Very well," he said, unsheathing a jagged spear. "Then let's see if you're truly the prince we've been waiting for." The circle widened. The fight was about to begin. The circle of warriors widened, their eyes locked on Tund as he faced Oba. The water between them vibrated with tension, a current of unspoken challenges and the weight of destiny. Oba twirled his jagged spear, its sharp edges glinting under the faint glow of the deep-sea lights. "You want to prove yourself, Land Prince?" His voice was a low rumble, filled with amusement. "Then fight me. If you survive, perhaps you are worthy of the throne." Tund clenched his fists. He had fought before, on land, against men. But this was different. Here, in the ocean, the battle belonged to the ones who had mastered it. He had to prove he was one of them. The crowd of warriors began chanting, their voices rising like a storm. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" Baba Darren's voice reached him, a whisper through the currents. "Trust your instincts." The ocean is within you. Tund exhaled. Then Oba attacked. The massive warrior shot forward with terrifying speed, his spear slicing through the water like a lightning bolt. Tund barely dodged in time, twisting his body as the weapon grazed past his arm. Oba didn't stop. He swung again, this time with more force. Tund dived low, using the ocean's pull to propel himself to the side. His movements were faster than he expected, too fast. For a brief moment, he saw shock flicker across Oba's face. Tund didn't hesitate. He grabbed a loose rock from the ocean floor and hurled it at Oba's arm. The warrior grunted, his spear slipping slightly. Tund surged forward, aiming for Oba's chest. But Oba twisted mid-motion, flipping Tund onto his back with a powerful tail strike. Pain exploded in his ribs as he tumbled through the water. The warriors roared in excitement. Some laughed. Others murmured. He is fast, but not trained. Oba hovered above him, his spear tip inches from Tund's throat. Is that all, Prince? He mocked. Tund's breath was ragged. His chest burned, his body ached, but deep inside him, something stirred. The ocean called to him. Not as a place. As a power. Oba lunged again. But this time, Tund didn't move, he called the water. As if answering an ancient command, a sudden pulse of ocean energy erupted from within him. A wave surged between them, knocking Oba back. Gasps rippled through the warriors. Even Baba Darin's eyes widened. Tund floated in the center of the arena, his hands trembling as the water swirled around him. Oba steadied himself, his face no longer amused. Now, there was something else in his gaze. Respect. You called the sea to your aid, Oba said slowly. He lowered his spear. No one but the rightful heir can do that. The warriors fell silent. Then, one by one, they pounded their chests, a deep, resonating sound. A warrior's salute. Oba smirked. Perhaps you are the prince we've been waiting for after all. The warriors gathered around Tund, speaking in hushed tones. The air in the city had shifted, he had proven himself. Baba Darin placed a firm hand on Tund's shoulder. You have awakened part of your power, he said. But you are not ready yet. Tund met his gaze. Then teach me. Oba nodded. We will train you. We will prepare for war. Tund looked at the warriors, the exiles, the broken, the forgotten. But he didn't see weakness. He saw strength. And soon, the Ocean King would, too. The battle for the throne had begun. The city of the Forgotten Ones was alive with movement. Warriors sharpened their weapons, merfolk practiced battle formations, and deep-sea creatures, some summoned by ancient calls, prepared for war. Tund stood at the heart of it all. He was no longer a lost prince. He was a leader. Oba approached him, his massive arms crossed. The Tyrant King's stronghold is well guarded. His warriors are ruthless. If we strike without strategy, we will be crushed. Tund nodded. Then we strike with intelligence. He turned to Baba Darin. What do you know about the stronghold? The old shaman's eyes darkened. It is a fortress of coral and enchanted rock, guarded by sea demons and the king's most powerful soldiers. But there is a weakness. The warriors leaned in. Baba Darin pointed toward the glowing map drawn on the seabed. There is an ancient tunnel beneath the palace, long forgotten. It leads into the lower chambers, where the king stores his treasures and secrets. If we can enter through there, we can strike from within. Tund studied the map, his heart racing. And the palace guards? Oba smirked. They are strong, but they do not expect an attack from the inside. Tund clenched his fists. Then we use that to our advantage. We divide into two groups, one will attack from the front, drawing their attention. The other will enter through the tunnel and strike the king where he least expects it. The warriors murmured in approval. Baba Darren nodded. It is risky. But if we succeed, the throne will be yours. Tund exhaled, then turned to the army before him. We do not fight for revenge. We fight for justice. For our people. For the ocean. The warriors roared. The raid had begun. The ocean was dark as the warriors approached the stronghold. The palace loomed before them, a fortress of black coral and enchanted stone, pulsing with eerie blue light. Tund led the first group through the hidden tunnel. The entrance was hidden beneath the roots of a massive kelp forest, untouched for decades. As they swam inside, the water grew colder. The walls were covered in ancient markings, warnings from the past. Oba swam beside Tund, his expression grim. The king has filled these tunnels with traps. We must move carefully. The warriors advanced in silence. The only sound was the distant echo of movement above them, the guards patrolling the stronghold. Tund felt his pulse quicken. They were inside. The raid had begun. The second group, led by Oba, attacked the front gates. They struck fast and without warning, overwhelming the first wave of guards. The sound of clashing weapons and war cries echoed through the water. Inside, Tund and his warriors moved swiftly through the tunnels. They reached the lower chambers, where the king's power was kept. A massive vault stood before them, sealed with magic. Baba Darren whispered an incantation, and the lock shattered. Inside, glowing orbs pulsed with energy. The king's soul magic, Baba Darren whispered. His power is stored here. Tund stepped forward. Then, a voice rang out. You should not have come here, boy. Tund turned sharply. The tyrant king stood in the entrance, his golden armor gleaming. His eyes, dark as the abyss, locked onto Tund. You are a fool to challenge me. Tund raised his spear. The final battle had begun. The tyrant king stood at the entrance of the vault, his golden armor pulsing with dark energy. His eyes, deep as the abyss, locked onto Tund. You dare set foot in my palace, his voice rumbled, sending vibrations through the water. You, a lost child, think you can take what is mine. Tund gripped his spear. The warriors behind him tensed, waiting for his command. Baba Darren whispered urgently, his power is drawn from those orbs. If we destroy them, he will weaken. The tyrant king smirked. You think I don't know why you are here? He raised his trident, and the water around them trembled. A forceful current slammed into Tund and his warriors, hurling them backward. Tund spun through the water, struggling to regain balance. The king moved with unnatural speed, appearing before him in an instant. Crack! A powerful blow from the king's trident sent Tund crashing into the vault wall. Pain exploded in his chest, but he forced himself up. He could not fall now. Oba roared, charging at the king with his jagged spear. The tyrant turned and caught the weapon mid-swing, twisting it from Oba's grip. With a flick of his wrist, he sent Oba spiraling away. Tund's mind raced. The orbs. I have to destroy them. He turned to Baba Darren. Can you break them? The old shaman nodded. It will take time. Then I'll buy you that time, Tund said, gripping his spear. He surged forward. Tund attacked with everything he had. He struck fast, using the speed he had discovered within himself. For the first time, the tyrant king did not move fast enough. Tund's spear sliced across the king's golden armor, leaving a thin crack. The king hissed in pain, his dark eyes narrowing. You are more than I expected, he admitted. But not enough. The king raised his trident, and the water around them turned black. A swirling vortex of dark energy formed, growing stronger by the second. He was summoning something. A massive sea creature emerged from the darkness, a shadow serpent, its eyes glowing red. The warriors behind Tund gasped. They had heard of this beast, but never seen it. Baba Darren worked quickly, chanting over the glowing orbs. One of them flickered. Tun dodged as the shadow serpent struck, its enormous fangs missing him by inches. The beast coiled around the Tyrant King protectively, its gaze fixed on Tund. Tund knew he had only one chance. He took a deep breath and called the water. A powerful wave surged through the chamber, slamming into the king and his serpent. For a moment, the darkness wavered. Baba Darren shattered one of the orbs. The Tyrant King staggered. His golden armor dulled, his grip on his trident faltering. Tun saw his opening. He lunged forward and drove his spear straight into the king's chest. The Tyrant King's eyes widened in shock. The energy around him flickered, the shadow serpent vanishing into nothingness. The palace began to tremble. The tyrant was falling. The warriors erupted in cheers. The stronghold, once dark and oppressive, now shimmered with new light. The water around them was clearer, purer. The king gasped, staring at Tund with something that almost looked like respect. "You are the ocean's will," he whispered. Then his form dissolved into the water, leaving nothing behind but the shattered remains of his power. Tund turned to the warriors. They stared at him in silence. Then, as one, they bowed. He was their king now. Oba grinned, placing a hand on Tund's shoulder. "You earned this." Baba Darren nodded. "The ocean has chosen you. Rule wisely." Tund looked around. The palace was his. The warriors were his. The ocean was his. But deep in his heart, he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The once feared stronghold of the Tyrant King no longer pulsed with dark energy. Instead, its coral walls gleamed under the soft glow of bioluminescent fish. The ocean currents carried whispers of change. Tund sat on the newly restored throne, the weight of his victory heavy on his shoulders. Warriors, healers, and elders stood before him, awaiting his command. Oba stepped forward. "The people are ready. They look to you for guidance." Tund nodded. "We will rebuild. No more suffering. No more stolen mermaids. No more fear." Murmurs of approval rippled through the court. Baba Darren placed a hand on Tund's shoulder. "You have won the throne, but have you made peace with the ocean itself?" Tund's chest tightened. He had fought for justice, but in doing so, he had ignored the whispers of the sea. Mareo. His wife, the woman who had once been bound to the land but belonged to the waves. She had saved their child and disappeared. Had the ocean truly taken her back forever? That night, Tund swam to the sacred well where Mareo had vanished 7 years ago. The moon's reflection shimmered on the water's surface. Kneeling beside it, he whispered her name. Mareo. The ocean answered. The water stirred, rising like a living thing. A figure began to form, a woman with long, flowing hair and a shimmering tail. Tund's breath caught. It was her. Her golden eyes locked onto his. "You have done what needed to be done," she said, her voice like the tide itself. "You have freed the ocean from tyranny." Tund reached for her, but a current pushed him back. "You were never meant to keep me," Mareo continued softly. "I was a gift you could not own, only love." Tund's throat tightened. "But I love you still." She smiled, a sorrowful, knowing smile. "And I love you. But my place is here." Tund swallowed hard. "And my place? You are the ocean's king now. You will rule wisely, and when the time comes, you will return to the water fully." A wave swelled behind her. "Goodbye, my love." Then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she was gone. Only the moon's reflection remained. Years passed. Under Tund's rule, the ocean kingdom flourished. The stolen mermaids were freed. The warriors found purpose. Balance returned. But the people never forgot the tale of their king. A man who had once lived on land, who had fought for love, and who had claimed a throne that was never meant for mortals. And on nights when the moon was full, when the waves whispered secrets only the ocean knew, some swore they could hear a voice calling from the deep. A fisherman's voice, calling a name that only the sea remembered.